we reserved a car at Thrifty Car Rental, and when I got there to the airport on a busy Friday night, they were out of the car we wanted, the car I reserved, but the guy didn't tell me that. Instead, he started the transaction off with trying to upgrade me immediately and all these fantastic deals on bigger cars and all that kind of stuff. And finally, I just said, "Hey, where's the car I reserved?" And he said, "Oh, we're out," which, of course, he wasn't going to. He wasn't going to be honest about, obviously, till I probed him on that to see where the original car we reserved was. Instead of just trying to upgrade me to see if I would jump on one of those deals first instead. It was pretty obvious. And like I noted in my written review of the situation, it felt like I was dealing with a sleazy used car salesman the whole time. It was pretty shady. Gave me a bad feeling right from the get-go, so I kind of had an idea what was to come already. What they gave us was a small SUV in place of the full-size car that I had reserved. And the guy he'd basically lied to me. He told me he was giving me a mid-size SUV, which would have been fine. I'd have been okay with that, although no discount on price versus the full-size car. Maybe they're the same. It doesn't matter. What does matter is that they gave me a tiny little compact SUV for a 500-mile road trip on the interstate, which was not satisfactory because, they don't ride anywhere near as well as a larger car, and felt like it was fairly unsafe and for that kind of travel. The worst part was the flat tire that we found the next morning. I'd rented the car the night before so we could start out early the next morning. I drove it 5 to 7 miles home that night, Friday night, get up the next morning, and there's a flat tire. I thought my wife was joking when she came back in the house after going out to unload something or to load something in the car, and comes back in to tell me there's a flat. And I thought, no way, because she's always joking around. Sure enough, get out there's a flat tire. And luckily, I had tools in the garage. I got those out real quick and changed the tire, and I noticed immediately that the tire was dry rotted, pretty worn out, cracking all over the tire. So I checked all the tires, and they were all that way. So they'd rented us a smaller vehicle than what we reserved with dry rotted tires. The vehicle was obviously not well cared for. There was one of the license plate, you can see in one of the pictures I took, one of the license plate lights is just hanging out of the back of the car. The license plate was all bent up. Obviously, they'd probably just vacuum them and send them right back out. But anyway, very, very dangerous situation. We called Thrifty, and they told us to bring it back, and they would swap it, as, provided it, there wouldn't be any extra charge for their damage, if provided it wasn't our fault. But if it was, of course, we were going to have to pay for the new tire and blah, 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 all that. But if obviously it wasn't our fault. So we took it back, and when we swapped vehicles, and the guy was somewhat apologetic. The girl that checked it in actually charged us for the fuel for driving their defective vehicle home and back, and which was crazy. And then the guy that did swap vehicles for us, older gentleman, he was somewhat apologetic, but not really. He was in a hurry to check people through. They were busy, and we did finally get the car we'd reserved. We got a larger, a Chevy Malibu, which is actually what I'd reserved to begin with for the trip. And somebody apparently overnight had turned it in, so luckily we were able to take off in the car that we'd reserved. And that was good because it was safer, rode much better. The tires were in good shape. The car drove fine. The bad thing is how they handled it all, because when we finally got the car back to the airport that night in Durham, North Carolina, it was a one-way trip. They charged us overtime, an hour's worth of overtime. Had they restarted the rent that morning after we returned, exchanged the cars, we would have had more grace to return the car Sunday morning had we, had occasion arisen where we would have needed to, turn it in later. But as it was, we had to scamper back to the airport in Durham real quick after we completed our business, and then they charged us with no grace. It did give us a break on fuel when I told the guy what had happened, which was nice, but still, just bad situation all the way around. An apology or some acknowledgement of some sort of how badly we were treated and how poorly the whole contract, the whole interaction worked out, along with 50% of the $282.01 that we paid returned. I don't want the second car we were given to be free. We were able to use it and get to our destination, but at a great cost. Lots of trouble, lots of stress. Could have turned out a whole lot worse than it was. So probably really lucky for them. I mean, if I were in management with them, I'd refund everything, because they could have ended up with a huge lawsuit on their hands if, one of those tires had blown at high speed on the interstate. We'd been hurt or killed. So if it were me and I was in management, I'd refund everything with maybe discount cards for future rentals or a free rental somewhere in the future as well. That's the way I would handle it.